Namaste. Hi, I'm Bruce Benefiel, and welcome to One World. Hi again. Namaste, of course, as you've been hearing it off and on, and if this is the first show, this is your first time. What it means simply is the divine in me worships the divine within you. It comes from the Brahmi language, which actually predates Sanskrit. I'll get a little tongue-tied here and we'll move on. This week's guests are Dr. Beth Jarman and Dr. George Land, who not only are founders of Leadership 2000, they've also written a book, and that book is called Breakpoint and Beyond, Mastering the Future Today. And we'll talk about that for just a little bit this evening, too. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, glad to have you both here.
Glad to be here.
Now, Beth, if you could kind of give me myself and the audience a little background on how the two of you got together and what prompted your meeting.
Well, my real interest at the time that I met George was understanding why in so many positions that I had had was I not accepted like I thought I would be. I had been told that you can be everything you want to be, and so...
An example of those positions?
Those positions would be a state legislator, an executive assistant to a governor, and governors, a cabinet secretary to governors in 2 different states. And my experience was not that I wasn't welcomed with open arms, that there was a reluctance to accept a woman in non-traditional positions. Mm-hmm. And so I became very interested in the whole subject of change.
The patriarchy creeps up again.
And why there is such a mobilization against a person who is different, and why there is a tendency to resist change. Mm-hmm. And at the time that I was so interested in understanding change, one of my friends, who has been a guest on your show, Beth Schwartz, said to me, I think you might be interested in reading a book called Grow or Die. There is a person who has founded the science of change. And I was very interested in his book. And then a very serendipitous event happened. Another friend said, have you read a book called Grow or Die by George Land? And then another person gave me a tape of a speech that George had given on the spirit of business. Mm-hmm. So I decided, after reading his book and after hearing his tape, that I really wanted to meet him. And so when we had the opportunity to meet, we immediately knew that our work complemented each other.
Well, you mentioned spirit of business. That sounds almost like an oxymoron.
It does, doesn't it?
Well, I started working with businesses in the whole area of creative process about 35 years ago. Mm-hmm. And more what I discovered was that those organizations, they really had a great vision for what they would contribute to the planet and to their customers. That they had an inner spirit that was very powerful.
Sure.
And you see that manifest itself in extraordinary successes. And it's the kind of thing we've seen in a company like a Walmart, for instance,
right,
where Sam Walton really infused that spirit of service throughout the organization. He really believed in people and respected people, and it wasn't a classic hierarchy.
Right.
And there is a spirit that infuses organizations, and I got very interested in that. And Beth was talking about the science of change. Although I had written a book on that subject, I in fact really didn't understand it until I met Beth, and we began to really talk about what change really meant. And on the human side, I'd looked at it from the scientific side.
Right.
And she opened the door to really understanding it in a much deeper way.
Well, I think relationships bring that out. It doesn't matter, you know, we can understand things from a distance, but until we dive in and we really, business is a lot different than relationships, although we do develop relationships in business. When you're exploring the relationship side of things, a lot more intricacies come into play and nuances.
In business, we've been told, or in organizations, I don't want to just focus on business, we have been told to leave our emotions and our spirit at the door,
Right.
and to get down to business, and really to be whole, and to be balanced, and to be in harmony. We have to take all of us into every organization that we go into. And our
Agreed.
work is really about wholeness, and about how do we achieve that in our own personal life and in our organizations, and certainly on the planet today.
Now, how do you see that originally starting? Because it seems to me, I agree completely with what you're saying. You know, a person's whole. He doesn't leave his home at home when he goes to work, and he doesn't leave his work at work when he goes home. It's a whole person. You don't have two lives there. You've got you've got to have that balance in there. How do you, how did you first become aware of that, and the need to go beyond that?
Well, I think one of the things that really comes across with people that are very successful is that they dearly love what they're doing.
Right.
You know, it's very hard for them to separate work and play. So you say, when do you work? And they are baffled. You know, they don't know how to answer that
Yeah, it's all
question.
play.
How do you play? You know, you expect them to have a skateboard hobby or a boat or something, and they love their work. And
you see a wholeness about those people that you don't
You can see it in their
that
eyes.
people,
Oh, yeah.
when they've
Absolutely.
compartmentalized their life, or they don't love what they're doing. In fact, in our society, what we see is so many people are really doing what they love to do as their avocation. They say today that only 15% of the people in colleges will ever work in their major. And only 2% of our young people will ever really do what they love to do, which is their heart's desire as a profession.
And right now, don't we change careers 7 times or something like
Well,
that?
they're saying at least 5.
Yeah.
And in my own experience, I've had 4 different careers, and I'm certainly marching to the 5th.
Well, and the thing is that we talk about careers, and the fact is, in 10 years, probably about half the careers that we know today will disappear.
Right.
And a whole range of
Technology
new careers
changing.
will open up. And we don't know what they are yet. And people will create those. So now it's a matter of, we're really at a threshold of opening up possibilities that never existed before. And in our research and experience, we find that I have never run into a person who is doing what they love to do who's not successful in all the other ways that we measure success, monetary success and status and all of that. But that's not what they care about. That's sort of a byproduct of doing what they really enjoy.
And many of those people have been tremendously creative in defining and creating that kind of work. And all of these careers that we're creating require us to be tremendously flexible in this age of rapid change. We cannot get stuck in what we think is going to be.
Right. Speaking of flexibility and change, we're going to take a short break here and listen to a PSA. That's a public service announcement, and we'll be right back with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thursday night, my night out with the boys. A few beers, a little action, sometimes we'd score. Thursday nights. That was the old me. It took AIDS to make me realize that I was putting myself and my family in danger. I was cheating. It's not worth it. I love my family, and I'm not bringing AIDS home.
Find out more about AIDS. Call 1-800-342-AIDS.
Hi, and welcome back again. We're with Dr. Beth Jarman and Dr. George Land. And Beth, if you could we were talking about flexibility and change. A lot of that's caused from addressing fears and overcoming them. What kinds of fears have you encountered in your rise to where you're at, or in your journey?
Well, I can speak personally right now, and one of the great fears in my life is having the courage to follow my own path, to listen to my own voice, and to look at myself as the source of my own wisdom. Because I believe all of us in our society are inundated with the message that knowledge is outside of us, and that we have to go to school and we have to learn what the experts believe. And I was very good at that. And
you knew how to ask questions.
Yes, and I also knew how to do well in school.
Yeah.
And at this particular juncture of my life, it's having the courage to live my own path and to speak my own truth. And I think that, at least for me, and maybe for some of your other viewers, this takes a different kind of courage. And so I've had some fear around some creative blocks that I have. We don't really listen. We don't really learn how to interpret our dreams, how to listen to our inner voice, even how to develop that. So that's where...
Unless we do it, kind of on the fly, and over time, we pay attention to it, and it's there.
Yes,
and,
like sitting on our shoulder talking to us.
Exactly, exactly. But like you say, we are taught to look outside of ourselves, even, in the so-called metaphysical world, or the New Age movement, whatever you want to call that. A lot of people are still there saying it's outside of you with the crystals and the books and all this and that and the other.
And the
bottom line, it
psychics.
should put it right back inside of you. If they're not teaching you that, there's something wrong. If we can look at it as right or wrong. It's consequences rather than right or wrong.
I agree with that too.
How about you, George? What kind of fears did you encounter, and how did you overcome them?
Bruce, I had a very strange upbringing. I had a kind of a crazy mother. It was like Auntie Mame. She was a poet. She was a big game hunter. She traveled all over the world. She was interested in everything. She was a conservationist long before it ever became popular, a naturalist. And she had some very simple rules. And one of them was, a basic one was, do first things first and be free of fear. And she encouraged anything I wanted to do, and there was no way I could do anything wrong. She gave me absolutely unconditional love and support. And so
that's unheard of.
It's unheard of. I went for many years thinking, well, everybody gets this, and then I realized that that's not true. But having that gift, I didn't know about fear, and. They say, beware of the fearless man, because you're probably going to get into some terrible trouble. And it's
there is
true.
Some truth to that, George.
There is some truth to that. But I've been very blessed in not having the kind of fear that I think parents and schools and so forth inculcate. I went to 11 schools, and I got so confused by everything. It was so different from school to school and culture to culture that I didn't know what to believe. So I didn't have any of those norms that says you have to be this way or that way.
You had to ask questions. And
I had nothing but questions.
Right. There again, it's like beware the man who asks questions. He knows enough to be dangerous.
Yes.
Right, indeed.
Now, how collectively have you overcome the fears that were, I'm assuming, presented at your initial coming together?
Well, George and I have gone through a very exciting and also challenging process, and that was deciding to write a book together. And my idea of writing a book was that you would sit down at the computer or wherever and write, and you would end up with words on paper. And George's idea was that you would draw pictures. And
Interesting.
the exciting part of this is in retrospect. At the time, I had some fears that how can I communicate that this is so peculiar to me and not kill the creative process that we're going through.
Right.
And what happened is that we learned how to create together. And I also gained a great appreciation for how a person learns differently and also expresses in a different way.
It was an exciting, well, it continues to be an ever-exciting process.
Sure.
Because we come at things very differently. So the synergy is tremendously exciting and illuminating. So the kinds of questions that Beth incessantly asks questions, I incessantly ask questions, and most of the time we don't know the answer, of course, and so we have to stretch and reach and think and probe, and the illumination that comes out of that is just extraordinary. And it continues.
Sure. Now, with the Leadership 2000, how do you see what you've been doing reflecting in those that you touch through that program?
I think that the most significant aspect of our work is that we really live what we're teaching, so we're an expression of what we believe. And Leadership 2000 is an organization that is offering people, whether individuals or corporations or organizations of any kind, an incredibly powerful framework to understand the changes that we're going through in this day and age and how we can develop a new roadmap for success. And leadership to us really means everyone taking leadership of their own life. It's not people that are just heading organizations.
Right.
It's each of us.
And I think that's the bottom line. We need to take control. We need to be empowered in our own lives and
responsible
Yeah.
to
So much
make
of
our
our
lives
work,
more.
we work primarily with the top management of major corporations around the world. And an enormous amount of what we do is helping them let go of that sense that they have had, that they have to control things, that they have to be the conscience of the organization, or that they somehow know better, and they have that responsibility. And
How do you
Instead
address-
of empowering everyone in the organization.
how do you address something like that? I mean, on a large scale, you know, we've just become a global community. How do we deal with that?
well, we do it really two ways, primarily, in the work that we do. One is to help people understand how nature works, because nature doesn't work in the fashion that we thought it did. It doesn't work through hierarchies. It doesn't work through departments.
Or
Everything is, or competition. The rule is that that cooperation and creativity and everything being connected, really,
Right.
tightly connected, really works, and that there's a pull to the future, not a push from the past, that they can go beyond wherever they've been and create something entirely new, which is what nature does
It's like
all
the
the
sun
time.
rising in the morning and the leap for the nurturement of the sun's energy.
But nature is in the business of constantly creating things that never existed and could never have been predicted by the past.
Right.
And those are, so really, by definition, miracles. Well, that's the business nature's in.
Yeah.
And we can do the same thing if we're bold enough to have those kind of visions and to capture the creativity of the people in the organization and really have people connected with each other, not judging each other, really working together to fulfill that vision. But the second thing we do is have people experience that. To have them actually, we work with some challenges that they take on as individuals and as groups. We go out here to the Superstition Mountains, for instance, and work with them. And they're under a lot of stress and pressure, and they find that they can do things they never dreamed they could do.
Sure. Just have the opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
To stretch beyond the limits that they've imposed.
Break through those old barriers. And once they've had the experience of it, then it's translating it to, okay, how do we take that back in practical terms on Monday, and apply it in our business?
Do you find that they're taking a set of circumstances totally beyond their control and learning how to use those to the best of their ability? Am I?
Well, and that's what life is.
Yeah.
is circumstances totally beyond our control.
Right.
And we create illusions that somehow we're in control, but actually those are illusions. It's like the vice president of one of the largest corporations in the world was able to stand up in front of thousands of people in his organization and say, look, I don't know how to do this. You know, we're living in a world that I don't understand. I don't have the answers. I need help.
And together we can do
And
it.
together we can do it. And together they did do it.
That's a tremendous amount of vulnerability
Yes,
that
that
needs to be
is.
presented. Now, how do you get to that point with people that are laden with fear and repression of what they feel or think?
Well, I think that one of the reasons that we are startlingly successful with hardcore business types is because we're presenting to them a way to understand that science is the teacher of how to let go of these inhibitions, these fears, these resistances that they have had. And it isn't something that's squishy, it's something that's solid. Because these hardcore guys, if you will,
Sure.
believe in science. And so we're presenting them with some factual evidence that is different than they have thought before.
Literally, the same principles that allow a transistor to work or a laser to work are the principles they have to adopt. And they're entirely new principles. They're new discoveries.
But it's the new paradigm, which was a
completely
scientifically
new.
created term. And I
Exactly.
find that the quantum physicists and quantum mechanics are now proving what the mysticists, or what the mystics,
Yes, right.
okay, have known for thousands of
Exactly.
years.
That we're all interconnected,
Right.
that we're interdependent, and that we are creative. And there's this divine spark in all of us.
And
And
a little
tapping
seed
that.
of that point of white light, if you will, within each of us.
Absolutely. It's that one of the things, and we say this in our book, that the best book to read is your own. Because we're born knowing this stuff. Children know it. We have to train it out of them. We have to teach them to judge people. We have to teach them to not be creative. We have to teach them not to have great dreams.
Right.
Yeah. But that's in us. And so a great deal of what we do is just to help people know what they know. And to recognize that, my goodness, if you applied the old rules to a transistor, it would never work. But if you applied these kind of rules, the ones we deeply know inside, that's what allows that wonderful, miraculous device to work. So let's just use it in our lives. Let's be practical.
Right.
You know,
Bring it down to some practical things.
absolutely.
Beth, or excuse me, I was thinking of Beth Swartz too. Wait a minute.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Two Beths.
How do you see the barriers on a practical level? How do you see them coming down in order for that exchange to take place
Well,
among peoples?
I think that it's fundamental that we tell the truth, that we open up to our own creativity, that we're willing to celebrate the diversity that exists,
I think that's extremely important.
No, absolutely.
and to understand that only through the celebration of our differences will we really become whole
Right.
as a global society. And I think that we're learning a great deal about how nature works, how the brain works, and how to tap into this part of us that will allow us to be whole. And we can't do it alone. We have to do it with each other. So one of the things we do is give people the opportunity to experience what that feels like. Bruce, all over the world we ask people, when were you your creative best? Now, what were the qualities of the environment that allowed you to be your creative best? Oh, we cooperated with each other. We had a spirit of camaraderie. We didn't have rules and regulations and
Didn't judge one
procedures. We
another.
didn't judge. And then we say, okay, what are the qualities that exist in most organizations today? and they list
None of the
them.
above.
And it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
You know.
So, we've created environments that stifle our really caring about each other, our supporting each other. We can uncreate those anytime we want.
Agreed.
And this is known globally, not just locally.
We have the same answers whether we're in Japan or France or South America. Everybody knows this.
It's an innate quality that we
Exactly.
have,
Yes.
I believe, that
Well,
we've somehow repressed.
Well,
over
and
time.
George was saying we teach it out of young children.
Well, our educational system is set up to train drones.
It is, absolutely. And that's been appropriate for a long time, but it's not appropriate anymore.
Right, because we're no longer in a manufacturing kind of technological society. It's an information society. It's a service society now, which is taking things the other direction.
And we're maturing as a civilization.
Right.
Your body matures, and when it does, it interrelates in new ways. And the same thing happens with that natural process happens in individuals and happens in whole cultures and societies.
Especially
Well,
with instantaneous global communication
No,
available.
Exactly.
And that-
We have a nervous system that really embraces all of us now.
right. We're just about out of time. If you could share with myself and our audience some practical, everyday advice that people can live by,
Well,
that can help.
I think the best advice I can give is that the only thing we can ever do is work on ourselves. And to stop judging, to be more loving, to be in that situation in which you started the program, to honor the divine in you as you honor the divine in me. And if we can stay focused on ourselves, then there's 5 billion of us on the planet, and that's the new democracy.
And together we can do it.
We can do
We
it.
can do it, absolutely. Nothing is impossible. We have to put aside these ancient barriers. They're artificial, and they hold us back from what we can be.
So what could we do? What's a synopsis of how a person could live daily?
Well, I'm going to repeat what Beth said because it's so important. We have to, number one, we have to put aside judgment. Put aside the criticism, this voice inside that's constantly criticizing ourselves and everybody around us.
Perfect.
And the other thing is to have a vision, to be courageous, and to see a future you want to create and to have.
And do
To
it.
take it beyond the old pictures.
Great. Thank you both very much. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed this, and I'm sure our audience did too.
No, we
Thank
did
you,
too,
Bruce.
Bruce,
Great.
very much.
Thanks
Thank you.
again.
Terrific.
And thank you all for watching this week's edition of One World. And we're just about out of time, so I'll wrap it up real quick. Please call us, 602-264-0986, or drop us a line, care of One World, P.O. Box 32035, Phoenix, Arizona, 85064. If you'd like to know more about the show or our guests, please inquire. I'm Bruce Benefiel for One World. Namaste.